Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 146 of 911 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace and EJ.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Today, we'll be talking about 816 of 911, which is titled The Last Alarm. Of course, as always, we have a lot to talk about. This is also going to be a really emotional episode, of course.
Yep.
I think we're all feeling it, and honestly, not to say I'm nervous to record this episode, but a little bit. Because there's obviously a lot of emotions. We're talking about obviously the reality of this for the first time. And yeah, so like I said, it's gonna be a really emotional one. So have your boxes of tissues nearby because you're gonna need them. Or as Ronan would say, a towel.
A towel.
Star. I remember that.
Yeah. The moment we hit the later part of this episode, I've been tearing up a fair amount during it, but when we hit the last couple scenes, I just immediately made sure my tissue box was right there because I was like, okay, we're going through it now.
Yeah.
And I went through
Well, I think it hit me a couple of times during the episode, and obviously the characters definitely went through their stuff, some more than others, and I know we'll talk about it. So, but yeah, this is a loss.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that didn't like the episode and didn't like what they did, but I'm like, think about it, sit back and think about it in a couple of days and realize Athena was going through her own stuff, and that was her way of dealing with it.
So anyways, let's just get right into it. So we started out the episode with a house on fire, and I did have my varying emotions for the episode because I was just like, are you kidding me? I do not want to see some random ass call, and then until I realized it was a flashback, and I'm like, oh, I was like, oh, there's Bobby, guys, he's alive.
I had gotten spoiled as far as flashback had gone, and I have been saying for a while that we were getting flashbacks, or I've been hearing stuff that we're gonna have flashbacks, so I was like, yes. And so I went and I knew what this was, but I can imagine it was probably pretty jarring for people watching this live that didn't know what was happening at first.
There were several moments where, because you guys know I watch episodes live, I do live reactions and all that kind of stuff. So typically with the episodes, I really don't know anything, and I was glad they didn't do sneak peeks for this episode. Yes, we got the promo, but the promo doesn't tell you everything about the episode. Right. So I had actually told myself, and I had posted about this, that if they were going to release sneak peeks for this episode, I wasn't going to watch them. I really wanted to go into this episode with only seeing the promo, only reading the synopsis and that kind of stuff. So for me, I was just like, I wanted to know nothing. So when I saw this at first, I was like, what the heck? And then I was like, oh, it's a flashback. Okay,
yeah, cool. My roommate was exactly the same. She's like, wait, didn't he just die in the last episode? I'm sure it's a flashback. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So we see Bobby get out the truck and he's ordering everyone around. And it wasn't until we saw this that saw that it said 2018 that it was like, okay, yeah, it's a flashback. And then we saw Tommy and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is what's going on.
Tommy turnout's again.
Right.
Yeah. And then they're going in, and then this guy rushes, pulls in a car and rushes in, freaking out, asking about his wife and his son, are they okay? And then we find out there's an 11-month-old baby in there along with this guy's wife. So they go in, and it's not looking good. This house is there's a lot of flames. This is not looking very good. And they find the wife passed out, and she kept saying Micah. And Bobby goes to the nursery, but from before he literally gets in there, the floor in that room had basically gave, and the crib had fell through the flooring, and it was too engulfed in fire, unfortunately. And Bobby's face in this moment, this was such a tough one, especially at this time, because it's I want to say when he first got to the 118, or within a 6 month, I don't know what, I'm not putting time on it because this is hard, but I can tell it emotionally probably where it was at.
His family died in December of 2014, and so if this was 2018, it's not even 4 years since he lost his family.
So it's I can't I guess that I don't know, my brain is just scrambled.
It's also worth mentioning that it's not even like just before he got in there. He was stepping onto that floor, and Tommy actually saved his life by pulling him back.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Kind of pull them away.
like gotta give some credit to Tommy there because he did actually save Bobby's life in that one. But it's also interesting because this would have been when he was suicidal and wrestling with
yeah,
saving that number of people before he
Right.
offed himself. And so it's like it's interesting because I wonder, and we're not likely to know, but I wonder what he was going through, like if he even maybe had complicated feelings about being saved
Yeah.
and the child not, even though there's no way he would have saved the child. They just would have both died.
yeah.
But it's still like that had to especially hit him at that time in a
Right.
particular way.
Knowing what we know now about Bobby, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
especially like in that period where he was suicidal and when like in season one when like Hannah and Buck showed up and just other moments too, like
Mhm.
just knowing like different background things. But yeah, so unfortunately, yes, the crib did fall through the flooring, and then it's worse because when he goes out there, the mom runs up to him and like obviously she knows at this point because he comes out empty-handed that they couldn't save him, and like just like the silence and like the like the background of this scene, and like the you can feel the pain through everything through the screen, and just her like wailing on Bobby and then like Hen holding her back is just like, oh, like I felt so bad for Bobby
Yeah, that had to have hit.
and
And
her
I
too.
oh God. Yeah, like that's every parent's worst fear,
Yeah.
obviously. And it's, they only got 11 months with their child too, which no time's ever going to be fully enough, right? But like
Right.
they only got 11 months and babies that always hits harder, little kids it always hits harder. And I
Yeah.
do find an interesting sort of parallel because we started the episode arc with the lab with Bobby saving a baby, and
Yeah,
then
that's
we have
true.
this flashback with how
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't save one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was intentional or not. It's just a very interesting like little perspective maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting how that wound up being.
Yeah.
For sure. But then we move on to Athena, May, and Harry looking at a possible like resting spot for Bobby. So they're looking at this place and it's like an outdoor and indoor mausoleum hall. And it's like, oh, you can visit them like 360 whatever days a year, like not and only between certain hours. And you could tell Athena is not very much into this, as I don't think
Mhm.
I would be either if it was me. Like it
Like it's a
just
very beautiful
it's a
place, but
beautiful
like
place, but like you could tell that like this just didn't feel right. And Athena
Yeah.
had said that she doesn't think that her husband would want to be inside, but she thanks him for his time. And then May tells Athena as her like Athena's trying to like leave, and that it she's like telling Athena that it's been 2 weeks. At some point they have to bury Bobby, and Athena
Right.
says to tell that to the federal state authorities. They still haven't released his body. And May says how they will eventually and they have to be ready. And Athena says they will be. They just need to find the right place, which is true. And
true.
Athena then
Yeah.
gets a call from them. And now she's like, I need you to explain that to me again. And she's like, I didn't authorize that, so something is happening, and it's not necessarily good.
Not good. Not good.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, oh, yeah.
Like, oh no.
Yeah,
What's
and I
happening?
know a lot of people were upset that 2 weeks have passed for various reasons, and I get that
I
they
don't
did have to move forward just a little bit, and I get that. And we can talk about that obviously a little bit more later. I get it, but like, yeah.
Well, I think having had such a tragic final, like the previous episode of that last little bit of the episode, there's only so much you can fit into a that initial shock. We
Right.
got plenty of it, and I think
Yeah.
having only been a couple of days, I think they would have all been kind of in that same initial shocks and not really starting to move past it. So I actually kind of glad they did a little bit of a time jump, and then
Yeah.
I mean, logistically, I mean, obviously, he died from a virus that is technically like dormant and very rare. And they probably had to do tests. And then they didn't even know if like the body was going to be able to be released and possibly would have to be cremated. So there's all these different things that played into the situation. And that's not just going to take 5 minutes for the government and the federal and state authorities to figure out.
And also I was also expecting at least a week time jump because like I'm not necessarily the the knowledge bearer of all things funerals or anything like that. I'm far from, but like I know a lot tend to take place about a week after the death because it takes time to to finalize things to get a casket. I believe in some religions, and I want to say Judaism, but I'm not entirely sure. A couple of them, like you need to be buried like a certain amount of days afterwards, like pretty close actually to the death.
Within 24
But
hours.
yeah, something like that. But that's not obviously in play here. So I was expecting at least a week because we knew we were getting the funeral in this episode, and it did not make sense to have maybe picked up right afterwards. I am wondering if we're going to get any flashbacks to like the couple days following, like everyone going home and stuff at some point.
Right.
But I feel like if we probably would have gotten them in this episode. So I'm not mad about it at all, but like it would have been a very different episode. I don't know that they could have done the funeral in this one, is basically what I'm saying, if they had gone that route of doing a lot closer.
Yeah, and also for this scene, I really like that May and Harry were with her, and May was kind of playing the devil's advocate, so to speak. Like, look, Mom, we've got to make a decision, like regardless of how long it takes. And
they're both being so supportive of her.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you don't want to. I relate to this because you don't want to get to the moment where it's been years and you haven't done anything.
Right.
Like that personally I relate to because I have like somebody in my family, like it's been years and they haven't really done like any burial or anything like that. I believe they're cremated, but like they haven't really followed through with the person's wishes, and like you don't want to do that. Is what I'm trying to say. So yes, it's important to like get on it, but like Athena, like yes, she's not gonna take forever, but she needs to be ready because that is such like an emotional thing too, which obviously.
And I haven't lost a spouse, but I've lost both my parents. So I like totally understand like maybe the hesitation, and like the more I make decisions, the more final it is. So I can see where Athena's sitting, where she's like, I don't want to admit yet that he's really gone. And by picking a place and being ready, I'm admitting he's never coming back. And I can understand where she's coming from. But yeah, and I'm sure, given that he's a first responder, there was something, like many of them already have documents stated like, this is what I want, this is how I want to be buried, things like that. So, but I really love this portion of the episode of just seeing where she's at, and then watching her go through it.
Yeah,
she went through it.
Yeah, it's definitely not a reality you want to have to face, especially so soon.
For sure. But then we go into a scene with Hen and Karen. Love them. And Hen gets up for the day and she asks like if the kids already left school, and Karen says they got a ride with somebody, and Karen's making Hen breakfast because she's going back to work today, and Karen makes a comment about how it's a week earlier than they had recommended, and Hen says, it will be light duty, and Hen tells Karen like not to worry, that she is not looking to pop any stitches, which I would hope so, but we know how things go. And Karen can't believe they're asking her back before Bobby's even, and Hen's like in the ground. And Karen says how it seems wrong, and Hen's like, yeah, everything about this is wrong, which is true.
Yeah.
And Karen tells Hen to take the 5 extra days, and Hen says how the boys are coming back today too, and she has to be there. And Karen's like, okay, because obviously she's not going to change her mind even if she thinks she needs more time. Like if everyone's coming back today, she obviously wants to be there for like obviously to be with their family, the 118 family.
And it's very common in this situation where two weeks is usually what they give for traumatic losses like this, especially if you're losing a coworker. The team that's directly connected usually have some time off. Everybody has to get counseling, and sometimes you can't go back without being cleared for it. So,
Right.
but and so I get yeah, and she's like, I'm gonna push through and go back when my guys go back.
Yeah. And there's also just a little bit of me that I don't know, something inside me melted a little bit at the idea, it's soon to be Captain Hen, most likely anyway, going back to look after her boys a little bit.
Hmm.
Captain Mama Hen, going back to look
Right.
after her boys, so to speak. I was like, okay, but that does kind of make me melt a little bit.
Right.
And obviously they're not going to go back at different times.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we get to the next scene, which Buck is showing up at Maddie and Chim's. It's very like common to just like with the couple names, just like start speaking and then saying like Maddie instead of saying Maddie and Chimney.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It very much jumbles sometimes, which I think is funny, but yeah, there's that. But Buck shows up there and Buck's knocking and asking if Chim is ready, since they said they would drive in together this morning, and Maddie says he already left before Maddie even woke up. And Maddie said that she texted him and he said there was something he had to do before work. And Maddie is surprised he didn't tell Buck, and Buck says how he feels like he has not been telling him a lot of things lately and he thinks that he's avoiding him. And Maddie says how he has been avoiding everyone. And Maddie asks if Jim told him that he started running as a hobby. And Buck is like, really? He thought he hated running. And Maddie says how now it's his favorite thing to do. And he says it helps him clear his mind. And Maddie thinks it helps him avoid talking to anyone. And Buck is like, he's talking to the counselors though, right? Maddie says how he has been doing his sessions, but she's not so sure that he's been talking to them, which I've
Mm,
seen that in other first responder
yeah.
shows where they show like a therapy scene, and the person will go there, but they won't speak a word the whole time. Like
Right.
they think that just because I'm there that that's just therapeutic
Yeah.
enough, which I get it. Everyone has their way of coping, and it's
Hmm.
hard to talk about things, especially in like a death when a death comes along. Like it is very difficult and stuff. But then Maddie asks about Buck, like, and Buck says, "Oh, well, I've done a lot of therapy at this point. I'm pretty good at it." And I know a lot of people were like, "Buck, just because you've done therapy doesn't mean you don't still need it." Like,
Right.
and stuff. I don't
Also, there's no
necessarily,
such thing as being good at therapy.
yeah.
Right.
It's not a
Um,
skill you get. Speaking as someone who's been in therapy since she was 13.
Right. You can definitely learn tools for your toolbox to help you cope with things better, but yeah, no, you can't just be good at therapy. I love
Yeah,
you,
Yeah.
Buck, but
I
no.
get his mindset, but I'm also like, Buck, sweetie, you should still be, working with that and stuff. Like, I totally understand where he's going, but I'm also like, yeah. And then Maddie just hugging Buck. Um,
Oh, so
it was
cute.
so sweet, just like the emotions in that. And then Buck is asking like what's that for? And Maddie says because she loves him, and given recent events, she feels that it's something that she should start saying more, which is very true. You never know what will happen in life,
Right.
and you should always tell the people you love that you love them because you know, not every day is guaranteed. Like
Right.
every day that you wake up is gonna be a great day. I think that's like a really good mindset to have.
And I love this scene only because, well, for many reasons, but
Mm.
it reminded me of when they showed up at Maddie's and Chim's when Buck got struck by lightning. And she's
Yes.
so emotional and she's like, which one? And just like the
Yeah,
not
that scene
knowing if
gives
it
me
was Chim or
chills.
Buck they were coming about. And then to
That too.
have, yeah, so this was really good. Just
Yeah.
kind of full
For
circle in
sure.
some ways.
Yeah. And
Yes.
Buck.
It definitely links, well, no, it just definitely links into that, reminding that this is, in fact, a dangerous job.
Yeah.
And, I think more people in general should go in, not necessarily in a depressing way, but still have the mindset that not every day is guaranteed. But, like, especially in the first responder world, there's no necessarily avoiding that, and especially during this time. So I was glad they had that. And that is an interesting parallel with the lightning scene.
Yeah, I was thinking about like that episode a lot after this episode, but also during the episode too. there's a lot of things with that. So yeah. And then
Yeah.
Buck, obviously saying that he loves her too. Like this was such an emotional like
Mhm.
sibling scene and I loved it and just so many emotions in this episode for sure. Just with like the different pairings
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff. Then we go to the firehouse and Chim is there already there and there's like this little memorial set up of like for Bobby with like pictures and he's looking at them and then of course you hear Athena's voice asking like, "Did you do this?" And Athena says how she got a call from downtown and Chim is like, "Athena?" And she says how apparently, one of Captain Ash's firefighters has been burning up the lines, complaining about why it's been taking so long to release his remains. And she asked if it was Chim. And Chim's like, "Yeah, but I just, like, because he's just like, I just," and Athena kind of cuts him off and it was like, it was not your place to do that. But Chim's like, "You know what? Like, I was just trying to help and I didn't think that it was right that they were making you wait so long to bury him." And I get both sides of it because, like, yes,
Mhm.
it's Athena's husband and like that's hard, but I also get like waiting so long and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Like
It's
it was
so
not
tough.
Chim's place.
No, it
So he
wasn't.
wasn't necessarily in the right, but I wouldn't even really say he was in the wrong either. Like, and I get why Athena was mad because it rushes her because she has been floating along, have being able to put off fully deciding on things because the body hasn't been released yet, and now the body is being released, and she now is on a time crunch, and
Mhm.
that's rough. So I fully understand why she was mad. I also understand Chim's end of things, even if he wasn't necessarily in the right, so to speak. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, it's
yeah.
nuance.
It
Mhm.
is. But Athena is like, right, because until he's in the ground, nobody gets to move on. They have to live yet another day thinking about Bobby and how he died. And Chim tells her that no one's ever gonna forget what Cap did that day, like least of
Mm,
all me. And this is when Hen and Buck kind of walk in, and it's kind of like, what's going on? And
Right.
Athena
yeah.
says how it worked. Funeral's Tuesday, and she walks off. And while she walks off, she bumps into this guy, and he is like, "Oh, sorry," and he makes a comment like, "Oh, I don't know if I went through the wrong door." And Athena's like, "Well, it depends who you're looking for." And he says how he's looking for Captain Bobby Nash, and it's just like, "Oh shit."
Mhm.
Whoopsie
And
daisy.
yeah, and she asks why he's looking for Bobby, and he says he was hoping he could help his sister like stay out of prison. And I'm just like, oh shit. I have so many feelings about the side scene because like in a storytelling purpose I get it, but in like another purpose I'm just like I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very complicated and I know like everyone felt complicated about like that, but it's yeah. Athena and this guy go to talk at like a diner or something, and he says, like I'm sorry about your husband. Like if I hadn't heard the news, and if I had, I wouldn't have shown up like that. And Athena's like, you said your sister was in jail, and asks why she was arrested. And he's like, stalking, breaking and entering, attempted kidnapping, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And Athena asks like who her intended victim was. And he says her dead son, who she has become convinced is still alive and living in Santa Clarita. And he explains that his nephew, Micah, died in a house fire 8 years ago. And Leah, his sister, was there when it happened, but she couldn't get to him by the time the firefighters showed up, it was too late. And he is like, "Oh, that was my husband's fire company." And he says, "Yeah, that's right." And he explains that after that, Leah's marriage fell apart and she couldn't hold down a job, and some days she could barely get out of bed, and basically all the terrible things that you think would happen to someone after like the worst day imaginable. After all this happened, basically. So he like got her a job because he owns like a catering company and found her a place to live and it took time, but she was slowly getting her life back. And Athena asks what happened, where they got here. And he explains that a few weeks ago they were on a job at a birthday party for a 9-year-old boy. And Athena's like, it was like the same age that her son would have been. And like when he realized he didn't realize this, and when he did, he tried sending her home, but she was like, "Oh, you're being silly. Like it's fine." And then 4 days later, she was calling him from jail, and she is convinced that this boy is her son, that he was stolen by this other mother, and he has tried to reason with her, but she just tells him he doesn't understand, that he wasn't there that night. And Athena's like, "Oh, so you went looking for the person who was there that night?" And he says that he doesn't know what he expected Bobby to do, and maybe he is just desperate. She won't listen to him, and he thought maybe she would listen to Bobby. And Athena asks, maybe she'll listen. Will she listen to me? And so
Okay.
that's kind
Can
of
I
how we get
just
into that.
say that Chim and Hen and Tommy were all there that night? Any
True.
one of
I
them?
was thinking that while I was watching this. I was like, technically.
There were 3 other people that we have active characters for that could totally have talked
But
to.
So with
I
the flashback we get later, I kind of understand why we were going with Bobby as well, because
Oh
like
yeah, no, I'm totally for like him asking for Bobby, but I'm just like, why didn't she pull in one of the 3 that had, in her little adventure next? Like, I'm wondering why she didn't pull in one of them to help.
there's a few things that I think about that, because in one sense that like it was like, for storytelling purposes it only really makes sense for it to be Athena, being that she being that like that's Bobby's wife, and like she's obviously going to be the most connected, and obviously like it's like if she's investigating something, she's like obviously the best and most qualified person to investigate something. And like, who knows
yeah.
if like any like Tommy, Hen, and Chim even remember this, because it has been like 8 years. I feel like for Bobby, that would probably like, I feel like for
I
Bobby with loss, it probably sits more for him.
I would say that I think they remember because you remember the kids. Like
Yeah.
the kids' losses, you're gonna remember that night. But they probably again, like we get a scene later where we learn that she and Bobby talked more. So it would
Yeah.
even if they were there like, hey man, I was there, your son did die,
Right.
it wouldn't have come across quite as much. And also only Tommy was in the same room
Right.
as
True.
Bobby when the crib went down, so he would have been even the more reasonable choice because he was also there when that happened. But
Yeah.
I don't think she would have listened to him either. So, and also this entire storyline was about this
Yeah.
was all helping Athena grieve and helping her
Oh, I
learn to
agree.
accept her own
Yeah.
loss. Like this storyline was so important. I know a lot of people weren't sure why we were having a storyline with this, like a B plot. This storyline was so important for Athena. This was symbolic. This followed a formula. And Athena was trying to bury herself in work and wound up being confronted with her own demons. And that was very symbolic. So, would it have made sense and make a lot more sense, maybe even if she maybe talked to Tommy? Yeah. I'm saying Tommy because he was there particularly, but even then, I don't think it would have made the same impact on her. I don't think she would have
Mhm.
listened quite
Yeah.
as much
That's
because
true.
she still would have been like, oh, but
Yeah.
he was stolen from his crib, and they didn't see the crib, or they
Right.
did see the crib, but did they really see that there was a child inside? That kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
That's true.
It
Oh.
yeah, it would not have been impactful at all. Like,
Yeah.
yes, they're gonna remember like this most likely, but like it just wouldn't, it would literally but be such a pointless part of the episode. It would have been like, why did you even put this in the episode? It's kind of like this scene is very like, the storyline is very complicated as is, of way
Mm-hmm.
how people view it. So like it just wouldn't have made sense that way
Right.
either. But
Yeah. It was just a thought I had because I was like,
oh
oh,
yeah,
like
for sure.
Athena totally could have asked for other help, but you're right. I totally get like what you guys are saying, and it definitely was her way of, I think, coping with Bobby's loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Then we get to the 118, and I know we all hate this, but here we are. So, of course, Gerard is here, and he wants to give this whole speech offering his condolences, saying words, cannot express how sorry he is. The LAFD lost an exceptional firefighter, and we all lost an exceptional person. He says he's not here to take his place. No one can. and he is not gonna be returning as captain. He's just here to get them through this difficult transition until Chief Simpson can appoint a candidate more worthy. His goal is to keep things running smoothly while he's here and to support them during this difficult time. He knows that whatever he says isn't going to make any of this better. But he would like to say a few words about Captain Ash and what he meant to him personally. And Jim walks up, as he should. And I'm just like, with this scene, like, I get what they were trying to do, but like, this is
Mm-hmm.
my main thought. And I'm just like, Vincent Gerard, literally, you could say nothing that would make me like you. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I can appreciate that, like, he said what you should say, but I'm just mad that they literally had, of all people, Gerard come back to the
Mm.
118 after they lost their captain and like basically their father figure. More so for others more, but like I'm just like like I get what they're trying to do, but I'm also like I hate it.
Yeah,
As
I
we
was
all
not,
do.
yeah.
Like
Gerard
um
is not my favorite person. I will say he seemed very toned down compared to his previous interactions with the 118. And I think Bobby was a huge proponent of that.
yeah, it was
I
I'll let you say something before I say something else.
We all know I hate Sherrod with a burning passion. I will
Me
never
too.
accept a
Same.
redemption arc for this guy. And they're not even really doing the redemption arc because they've never tried to make him not homophobic. They've never tried to make him not racist or misogynist. So they're not really doing a like redemption arc. They're more doing a like smoothing over arc in a weird way. I don't know what their ideas are here. I'm
Mhm.
glad that they like straight out said that he's not staying. We already knew that, but
Thank
like
God.
I'm glad they said that right there. I think the fact is that if this was not Gerard, if this was anyone else saying this, I would be fine. Like everything he said was actually technically okay. Like it was actually
Right.
pretty heartfelt and kind of meaningful. And we know that Gerard and Bobby did certainly have interactions, and he also like kind of helped like Bobby kind of helped Gerard out in his own way, mainly to keep him away from the 118, but like he did help out in his own way. So I think also Gerard is old and like toned down because he's too old to hate that much anymore, maybe. I don't know. I'm not trying to be ageist, but like I was looking at it and I was like, damn, like no offense to Brian Thompson, the actor, like he's fine and all that, but damn, he looks old in this scene.
Right.
So honestly, you might just
Yeah.
call. But anyway, I just like I'm not upset. I'm sort of upset that he's there temporarily, but not really all that much. Like they
Uh,
could have just brought in someone random, or they could have just appointed Hen right then and there. But like, I
they
kind of
weren't
see
gonna
why
do
they
that.
didn't. Yeah, I can't. I see why they weren't gonna do that. They wouldn't have just brought someone in random, and they weren't gonna appoint Hen without more fanfare. So I understand why he was in. It's just also I will never like Shrew, and I
Yeah.
truly hope that after this season we never see him again. But I keep saying that and he keeps showing up. So I don't
My
know.
I have a
Like
few
I said, I'm not surprised that Gerard was here only because we do know he's an active captain and he currently is not attached to a house. And it has been 2 weeks. More than likely, the entire 118 has been shut down. And this was everybody's coming back to work for the first time. And
yeah.
I think this was just Gerard was the only person currently available to take a house. And I'm glad he said he's not coming back because nobody wants that. And hashtag random, I just look him up because I wanted to see how old he was. He's 65. He's actually from here in Washington. I'm like,
That's
Oh,
funny.
really?
yeah,
That's
that was
funny.
hashtag random. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like just Gerard being here wasn't like surprising, being that we got leaks and we saw certain things. So it wasn't surprising, but it was still like irritating because I'm just like, listen, I don't know if they're trying to make us like him. They obviously don't know this fandom because like I think this is like the one collective opinion where
Mhm.
people are like, no, we hate Gerard. We're never going to like Gerard. And I'm just like, literally, I don't know what, like, I get that they were trying to obviously, like, with Chim's grief, like him walking off, and like they were trying to probably like this is the most likely person they're gonna go off on. So obviously for like storytelling, I get why they did this. I'm just
Right.
like
Yeah.
anything that like what he said was like what you should say, but I'm also like we're all gonna be mad about it because like if anybody else said it, it would be cool, but like I'm just like what are they trying to do? Like we're not gonna like Gerard. It's just not
Yeah.
gonna happen.
It's not what he said, it's just his existence.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at is like just him
Yeah.
being there is also just like really like it's not unexpected. Nothing honestly about this season at this point has been expected or unexpected, I guess is a good way to put it.
It's
Honestly, they'll
just
do
vibey.
anything at this point.
It's
Honestly,
just vibey.
honestly.
So, but yeah, fuck Sherrard. But in
Seriously.
itself,
Right.
a heartfelt speech and obviously a very difficult time for the 118.
Right.
For
And
sure.
it was very fitting given what Chimney's going through that, what Gerard put him through. And then he's about, I can only imagine just saying, I'm not going to stand here and listen to him talk about Bobby like he knew him,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I
Yeah,
totally get why Chim did what he did.
Yeah, I'm sure it
absolutely. Yeah,
was
don't
very
blame him.
much a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
Just him being there during this time. Like obviously, like another thing is Hen wasn't going to be like temporary captain because they're all going through grief, and
Mhm.
that's just way too emotional, and that would not be good for the job.
Yeah, it's
And
very
Since
also, she's still
common.
technically on light duty,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
so there's also that.
Yeah, and it's very common for them to bring an outsider like higher up to take care of, like even in a school, like if a teacher passed away, it's not uncommon for them to bring in somebody completely outside of the school to take over a class or something like that, because it's everybody's still too raw.
Right, for sure. And then we go into like another scene for an accident. So we get to this accident and this dude is yelling at this lady in the other car saying that she caused the accident. So then they're pulling up and the horn will not stop beeping. And um I love like not them stopping and Hen being like, "Oh, it's one of those." And Jim is just like right on it to kill the horn. I mean, Gerard did tell Buck to do it, but Chim's like on his own little mission, and I love him for it.
Right.
Um,
He
and
gives zero fucks.
oh, as he should. And yeah, Gerard is like giving everyone orders, and Chim is just doing whatever, and I'm just like, yep, can't blame him. And the guy gets out of the car and he's convinced, like Chim's trying to like check him out, make sure he's okay, and he's convinced that he's not the one who caused the accident. And he is like not being cooperative at all. He's not letting Chim examine. He's going off. He's recording, saying it wasn't his fault. And Chim is like, are you kidding? This is 100% your fault. That's your car. That's her car. And that's the tea that you boned. This is all your fault. And I loved him going off because this is like literally
Yeah.
everything you
If
want to
only we could
say.
really do that more.
I
Right.
know,
If only.
seriously. And
Fuck
I love just
professionalism. Just
like
gotta tell off an idiot.
literally, I just love like the people also like the other civilians like watching this whole thing go down and like clapping for Jim, like
Yeah.
yes. And the guy
Yeah,
is
like,
like,
dude, no one's on your side here. Like, sit your
yeah,
ass down and let yourself get examined.
it's always the person that caused it that gets on this like power trip of like, I didn't do this, yes you did.
Right.
Well, this
And
makes me think of the councilwoman's son. And he died.
I
So,
was
sit
thinking
your
Right.
about
ass
that
Yeah.
down.
scene. I was
When,
thinking about the scene in this episode.
yes. When
I was
Chim was kept
totally
asking him, okay, can I check you out? Like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is because he's been through this before.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody
yep.
refusing to get checked out. Yep.
Dan
Yeah.
died. Yep. And it's funny enough, that person was also the person who caused the accident. So
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
no, you're
Yep.
just a
Yep. Yep.
dumbass that can't accept it. Also, generally, you are going to be like, for one thing, there are generally a lot of cameras at stoplights, so I'm sure they could pull that footage, if nothing
Oh,
else, the footage of the buildings around. Also, generally held responsible for an accident is the person who hit the other person. That's
Typic
generally what happens, unless they can prove otherwise.
typically, yeah, it kind of varies state by state because some states have like really stupid laws. Like New York is one of those states that has some
Mm.
very stupid laws when it comes to accidents. Um, like and stuff. So, it's just one of those things. I don't necessarily know in this case, but that's not really, we don't really know much about that anyways. But the guy is like, when Chim is like telling him, like going off on him, the guy is like, whoa, at Chim, calling him out, which he should have been called out anyways. And Chim tells him to kindly sit his ass down so he can check him out for a head injury and make sure he doesn't bleed out and die. And Gerard then asks for Chim for a word. And Chim's like, what are you gonna give me a lecture on comportment? And Gerard is like, no, a chance to cool off. And Chim is like, you mean a timeout? No thanks. I'll just scrub the crapper, which I loved him saying that and him going on. It was so good. And Gerard is like, I know you're hurting. I am too. And I'm like, bitch, what the hell? No, you're not. I'm not trying to invalidate, like, honestly don't really care. I'm not trying to invalidate, but I'm like, bitch, this is not the same thing. You are
Right.
not. Like, yes, it's probably sad because, like, yeah, but, like, this is not, like, the 118, core 118's, like, feelings on obviously going through this grief is not the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, technically, Chim should have been stood down from that because he did go off at this guy. He did break the like laws of professionalism, so to speak.
Right.
And it like as much as Chim is valid for just going about and doing what he did, you just can't go off on you like on your own and doing your own shit during a call generally. That's a one-way trip to getting your team hurt. Now, granted, this was a car accident. It wasn't like a major fire or something like that, a major
Right.
emergency. So slightly less stakes here, but still, it's like Chim was absolutely valid, but he was also out of line. And so he did need to sit down and take a timeout.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, it's the fact that it was Gerard.
yeah, it
It's
definitely
just the fact
weighs
that it
on
was
that.
Gerard.
Yeah.
Though, who knows? He might have yelled at someone else, but he definitely was going to yell at Gerard.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Which,
Chim
fair
goes,
enough. Yell at
yeah.
Gerard.
Literally, that's why I don't care. It's Gerard. And Chim goes off on him, saying, you know, you shouldn't even be here. What right do you have to run the 118? You are not half the man Bobby was. And I love this line. And this was kind of like, I didn't hear it clearly, but it was kind of leaked. And I just seeing it in this episode, this is like, oh, it was so good because it's true. Like, nobody will ever compare to
Right.
Bob. Obviously, nobody's going to replace Bobby. It doesn't matter who ends up eventually next season being captain. Nobody will ever replace Bobby, but I think that's so important for, especially for Chim. But if anybody had said that, like, that needed to be said. And then Gerard is like, be that as it may, I am your captain. I'm just like, nope, not my captain. And Chim's like, only because I killed our last one, so I'd be very careful if I was you. And I'm just like, Chim, no.
Chim, honey, don't go around threatening him. He might deserve it, but don't go around threatening him.
I was totally like, I'm glad that that was like, this was kind of what was happening in this scene, because it definitely needed to be put out there, and it was like,
Mm.
the emotions from that definitely felt that so hard. Yeah, it needed to be out there, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was definitely an airing of things. And that was also, if we weren't already worried about Chim, we're really worried about Chim now.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. But then we go to Athena going to the jail to see Leah. And so Leah's like saying how her brother told her that she's Captain Nash's widow, and she says how he was a good man. And Athena says, yeah, he was. And Athena tells Leah that her brother is very worried about her, and she says how he thinks she's crazy and she's not crazy. She just did what any mother would do and probably just went at it the wrong way. And Athena asks about the boy, and she says Micah, but then Athena says the police report says his name is Cameron Myers. And Leah's like, of course the police report says that because that's what she's been calling him, but he's her son, Micah. And Athena is like, you think the boy is your son, and she says how she wasn't certain at first. She kept telling herself she was imagining things, but he looked so much like Micah, and she couldn't catch her breath for a moment, like seeing him, and she would have chopped it up to like a crazy coincidence until she saw a birthmark on his wrist, and it was apparently like the same one that Micah had, and she thought she was crazy too, but then she realized she did know the mom. The mom, they apparently had prenatal yoga together
Mhm.
until she stopped attending, and she remembered hearing some of the other moms saying her pregnancy ran into trouble and she had lost the baby. And Athena's like, that's when you started to think she went after yours. And she says how she heard stories of women so desperate to have a baby that they would cut one out of another woman.
Which
She,
we have had that on the show before.
yeah, and other
Right?
shows too.
Yep.
Yep, I've seen a few like that. And she goes on to say, oh, it'd be so much easier to wait until the baby is born, just steal him right out of his crib. And he is
Mhm.
like, and start a fire. And she even says, if you're desperate, you'll do things that you never thought you would do. So Leah shows up. We see like I guess like a scene part of this or whatever of Leah showing up to this boys baseball game and like being like, that's my son, and tries she like if after the game's over tries talking to him and being like, oh, remember I was at your birthday party, and like trying to take him, and then obviously the mom's there, so she's like yelling and be like, oh, she tried to
Right.
take my son. um, and she asked Athena, like, do you think I'm crazy? And Athena says no. And that if her son's still alive, she will bring him back to her. I had so many feelings about this whole scenario because, like, watching this, like, with live, I was just like, I could buy this story, but I was also like, I don't know. Now I'm like, this seems like very wild.
See, if they had chosen to make it an actual thing where the baby was stolen kind of deal, but like if they did that, it could have worked. And I think that's the whole thing. Like if they had decided to make it that kind of storyline, sure, it might be a little out there, but not so out there it's completely implausible. So I don't know. Like if they had to, because there were definitely coincidences. There were a couple things that could have been led into something bigger.
Right.
But I think that's kind of like I think that's an interesting thing that they chose to like do a storyline that has like grains of a little something that can be followed, and like her mind obviously she's never fully gone over her grief, like how can you, she lost her child, right, and it twisted in her mind. But I think that's a lot easier than making something like that's completely 100% illogical or
Right.
impossible. They sold a storyline with that, and that's I think Athena is not necessarily in the wrong for looking into it in general, but she's definitely
Right.
motivated by her own like need to bury her grief and uh, an understanding of this woman.
But yeah, so that happens, and then Athena goes home, and there's boxes everywhere, which I'm, I don't know. Rewatching, I was I didn't, there were a lot of things that I didn't think about the first time around. But like, okay, so like timeline wise, I'm like, and maybe we'll get this in like the next two episodes. But I was just like, okay, so there's boxes everywhere. I could see it being like a few different ways. But I kind of thought about that a little bit.
I mean, a lot of work can be done on a house in 2 weeks and beyond. Like I know we were in the house not too long ago and it wasn't all that finished, but if they were keeping work going for 2 weeks, I can believe it. The boxes being there, I didn't really notice the boxes, I'll be real,
There were a
but I was
lot of
also
boxes just around. And so
Mhm.
like, I don't know. Maybe this is me. Maybe this is a little crazy, but I'm like, did they partially move in when Bobby was still alive? I'm I don't I know like a cup like an episode before some of the stuff we got them like
Well, and
looking at stuff. I don't know. I was just very confused.
yeah, well, their previous home burned up
Right.
and they lost
mm,
pretty much everything. So I don't understand what would be in the boxes.
I mean, obviously they still have
I,
stuff to
Unless
I
they're
move.
wonder if it's stuff
ordering
from the
stuff.
movers, like not the movers, but the builders. I wonder if some of that stuff was from the builders and stuff they were like, I don't know,
Bringing
like
stuff in to
pictures,
build. Yeah.
like
It
stuff like
was,
that.
yeah, but
Oh,
it was very much, it looked like moving boxes. Like they would obviously, like it's been a while, like building takes a long time. Like
yeah, yeah.
obviously they probably accumulated new stuff, if anything. So yeah, I just don't think I thought about a little bit because I'm just like, okay. And so Athena's looking around and looking at like kind of like the house plans. And then her phone gets like a call from like LAFD HQ and she like obviously declines it and then she's looking at the blank wall and this is when she starts putting sticky notes everywhere and mapping things out and she's like she knows like obviously what Leah told her and Athena is on the case and she's getting like obviously all these texts like May and Harry were like going to dinner and asking if she wanted to come. She ignores everyone and Athena like puts down her phone and she like plugs in her laptop and she is getting to work and her phone is all this is blowing
Hmm.
up and I love her like looking into this woman's social media and realizing there's a chunk of time when she didn't post and Athena is like maybe she did lose her baby but not before he was born and Athena's working on this whole board, and her phone keeps buzzing, and she's got like all these notifications, like a bunch of them. And then we see Ghost Bobby, and I'm like, finally, about time. This is what I've been talking about.
Right.
Like, I was like, if we don't see Bobby just pop up in this sense, like, I, oh my God. And I loved his comment of like him be like, "Are you gonna start a podcast?" I found that so funny.
Right.
I had heard that we were getting Ghost Bobby in this, and I was like, yes. And so when we showed up, I was like, about time.
Right.
I
She
was
needs you
really
right now.
hoping. I was like, oh, finally. And Athena tells him that she thinks she's almost got it figured out. And she says that something happened to Heather's baby within these 6 weeks that she wasn't posting. And Bobby says that her not posting things on the internet isn't quite the evidentiary bombshell that you seem to think it is. And Athena says, well, even after she started posting again, things were different. The cute matching outfits were gone, no more daily photo shoots, and she stopped showing his face. And Bobby says that, well, maybe she realized that the internet was full of creeps and stalkers, and Athena has this look at her face, and Bobby says, I'm just quoting you in case you don't remember, which I found so, like, real. Also, like, just the fact of, like, that is so real because I feel like with just things that happened in the media, people are realizing, like, how, and obviously this should be your own choice as a parent, but people are realizing that you shouldn't maybe posting your kid like their face on the internet is maybe not the best decision.
Yeah. So it's absolutely believable that it's just she decided to not because it's really a good idea to keep your child off the internet. More people need to do that. But like at the same time, if you're using it to prove a point, then it's like, well, it also is a little odd if she was doing one thing and then immediately stopped doing it.
Yeah,
But
for sure. But yeah, it's definitely something I thought about and stuff, but like I get that there's a lot of people just in general that like as the kids get older, obviously they show them less and that's the parents' choice or
mhm.
Hmm.
whatever. But yeah, and Athena says like, look, if you are going to be helpful, go on someone else. I also loved
I
that.
love that line.
She's like, I'm busy, and
I'm busy.
I loved that they had Ghost Bobby come in because like that's something I wanted. Like if there was a death, I want that to happen. And I feel like people are like, that is so unrealistic. I don't like yes, in real life you might not this most likely would not happen in this scenario, but Like when somebody dies, you definitely dream about them. I've had that, and like things can happen where you're like, "Oh my God, it's this person," and like that kind of stuff. But like I get it, but I'm also like it does kind of make sense. Um, and Bobby is like to Athena, aren't you supposed to be busy planning my funeral? I heard it's gonna be big. And Athena is like, "Oh yeah, hero's burial. That's what the chief calls it. They already got a template they can follow. They don't need me." I love him being like, "I heard it's gonna be big." Like, I don't know why. Like, just some of these lines in this were just like, oh my God, I don't know even know what to say, but like they were just
Right.
like so perfect.
Mhm.
And Bobby is like, but this women does? And helping her is so important that you're hiding in here, racking up 11 missed phone calls and 42 unread texts. And Athena is like, "You're the one who locked himself in a lab to die. You don't, you, you don't like get to tell me how to spend my time." And Bobby is like, "Ouch." And
Right.
she had looked at the board and she tells him that this woman, her loss was important to Bobby and he would have helped her. And Athena is doing it because Bobby can't. And Bobby is like, "How can you know that?" And Athena's like, "Because I know you." And
Mm-hmm.
Bobby looking at her and being like, "You knew me." Past
Oh,
tense. That was like
Ouch.
straight to the heart, knife to the heart. Like, what the
I was like,
hell?
Bobby? No, bad. No, no, no,
Literally.
no.
And she felt that too, as I'm sure we all did. And
Hmm.
then she was going to say something, but then she realized he's gone because obviously he's a ghost.
Right.
Hmm.
Oh, that was like I loved that scene so much. Like for like the ghost aspects, I'm like, finally we have somebody haunting as you should.
Mm-hmm.
But then Jim
No.
goes home and Maddie is of course waiting up for him. And he says how he doesn't see Chi and asks what time it is. And Maddie says she went down a half hour ago. And Jim is like about to walk away, but then Maddie is like, "You've been gone a while. Like, did you go for another run?" And Chimp says he joined a yoga studio that apparently has a yoga for runners program. And Maddie is like, "Great. So another hobby that will keep you out of the house for hours at a time." And Shim tells
Mm.
Maddie that's not what he's doing, and Maddie says how he is shutting her out, which is the only thing they promised each other they would not do. And she tells him to please not insult her intelligence by pretending like that's not what's happening, which I loved her saying that.
Right.
Like, that's so true. And Chim says that running just helps him too. And Maddie is like, "Not think." And Maddie tells him that's the thing about running. There's never going to be anywhere far enough. You carry the pain with you, and eventually it takes you down. And Chim thinks that maybe it already did. He's not trying to shut her out. He's just trying to figure out how to get back up on his feet. That's all. And Maddie would know about running better than anyone else, so I love that
Hmm.
she's able to not necessarily call him out, but kind of like be like, "Wait, this is what's happening."
Right.
Bit of
Like,
holding him accountable, honestly.
exactly, that's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's like it's true. The thing about running is that there is never a place you can run far enough.
Yep.
And
True.
at some point you run around the world and you wind up at the exact same place you started. It's a funny way of coming back around.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very true. And then so we get to the next scene where they're exhuming the body of baby Micah. And this scene. So then the brother Gary is like stopping them and like and stuff. And Athena and he's like talking to Athena about it. And Athena like he's starting to think that oh, are you crazy too? And like he's trying to stop it. And Athena tells them like, "You don't have to be here. Like we'll let you know the results." And he says there will be no results. And Athena's kind of like, what? And
Hmm.
he is like, the casket. And then they open it at this moment, so they already know. And he's like, is empty. And so yeah, they find this out like before he had been able to verbally say that. So sure enough, it is empty, and the only thing in there is a picture of baby Micah, and it's empty because they didn't know how to tell Leah after the fire that there was nothing to bury. Which I would personally, I wasn't thinking about this during the episode, but honestly, like yes, that makes perfect sense with the
Hmm.
flashback. That
It
it
makes
would be
sense. He
empty.
was he was consumed in fire. Wasn't
Right.
that like he wasn't that big? It wouldn't have taken long, and
Right.
you know, fires are used to cremate bodies for a reason. Like they
Right.
Yep,
Yep.
that is true.
which like, obviously she should have been consulted. She should have been told, but also to some degree, like that is devastating to learn that there's nothing
Right.
left.
Yeah.
Like
Well, and yeah, it was. Yeah, the mother should have known. Um, but then also the husband and the brother knew she was in a full deep grief that, and so there was the father. But obviously it sounds like their marriage didn't work out, and
grief
you
tears
know,
those things apart
right.
really easy,
Yeah,
especially
for
when it's the
sure.
death of a child. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't necessarily think they were right, but I understand where they were coming from. Like
Yeah.
it's a difficult situation. And it obviously backfired at some point, but until then it was probably a great relief to her to feel like she was going back and visiting her son.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. But then Hen is in Athena's house, and Athena gets home, and Hen is like, "Are you okay?" And which startles Athena, of course. And I love Athena being like, "Henrietta, what the hell?" And
Right.
she's then asking Hen like what she's doing, skulking around her house. And Hen's like, "Oh, I came to check on you." And Athena is like, "Oh, Chimney asked her to do this." And Hen says, "Actually, it was your kids." Um, and Athena hasn't been returning their phone calls, their texts. The chief's office hasn't heard from her to finalize any of the plans for the funeral. And then Hen came here um to see if she was okay. And Athena's like, and what? And Henna's like, I mean, should I start with the air mattress in the corner and all the crazy over here? Because obviously she's got all that stuff on the wall. So
Right.
Henna's obviously concerned. And Athena says she was helping this woman. And Athena explains that she was looking into and Hannah's like surprised that so she basically tells Athena everything and or Han Athena tells Hannah everything. God, so many names in this scene. Sorry guys.
Right.
It's okay.
And so Hannah's kind of like surprised the mother didn't say anything before they exhumed the body, and Athena says how she didn't know her brother and husband decided without consulting her because they thought it would upset her more. So they
Not like,
decide,
she's upset and this is suddenly not just talking about this case.
yeah, that's usually how it
Yeah.
goes. So they basically decided because they knew best. And Athena's like, I mean, who does that? If you love someone, you're honest with them, you respect them, you trust that they can make the hard decisions. You don't just blindside them and then take off. And Athena is breaking down, and I feel so much for her. And then
Right.
Yeah.
saying, you don't leave them to deal with the mess alone. And Hannah's comforting Athena, being like, Athena, and Athena says, he's not supposed to be dead. And Hen's just like, um, you know. And he stood in the kitchen that morning planning their future, and he just left. He left me, and just her voice in this moment. I'm just like,
Mm.
And Hen says he didn't want to. And Athena's breaking down and is like, he did it anyway. And her sobbing, my whole heart. I'm just like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, watching her grief just come to like this culmination was
Right.
got in the feels.
I know,
It
nothing
did.
could have prepared me for this scene.
And I think this is what we all wanted was like her breakdown.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then Athena goes to the other mom's house, Heather, the mother of Cameron, and obviously the little boy Cameron answers the door, and then Athena's like, can I talk to your mother? Or like, can you get your mother? And so obviously he calls for the mother, and I'm just like, okay. And this kind of leads into the next part of the scene because that was like a really quick moment in the scene. And Athena goes to see Leah again, and she walks in, and Leah's like talking about how like Gary said like the like about the exhuming the grave, and he was so mad, and that she even gave permission for them to do that. And she's like, she said her son wasn't in there, was he? And Athena says no, and Leah is hopeful. She's very hopeful about this, and that's not obviously how we know this is gonna go. And she was like, I knew it, and Athena has to explain to her that there was nothing. It was just an empty casket with a picture of her beautiful baby. And Athena like is explaining that after the fire there was nothing left to bury. And then and Leah is like, no, there was nothing there because my son isn't dead. He he didn't die in a fire, and that woman has him. And Athena tells Leah that like, we did DNA results. That's why Athena obviously went to this woman's house
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, because she like they agreed to like do a DNA test so they could like cross match the DNA or whatever. And obviously the Cameron matches Heather, the mom, his mother, not Leah. Like so like her this is just not it. And
Right.
Athena like tells Leah that Micah is gone. And Leah's like, but I was so sure when she saw him. And Leah's like, you think I imagine it all? And Athena says she thinks that Leah was so overcome by grief. For a moment, she let herself believe that miracles were possible. And Leah feels like she is losing him all over again. And Athena tells her that the district attorney is willing to consider a diversion program. If she complies, her charges could be dismissed and she could get back to her life. And Leah's like, what life? And Athena tells her that she lost a lot, but she hasn't lost everything. And Leah then tells Athena that she can see why Bobby loved her and she is sorry he's gone. She says how he was a special person, which is very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which
Then
I'm like really surprised, and well, I mean, okay, not surprised, but just it was really cool how they like she talked about it because you're like, how did she know Bobby at all?
Mhm.
Because we hadn't seen that next scene.
Yeah,
right.
it's I was wondering like from the very beginning when they were all talking about Bobby, like the brother and then her, I was like, this does seem like a lot of like compassion or appreciation for a guy that like you would only know in the context of your son didn't survive. And I was like, there's surely gotta be a little bit more to it than that. And there is with this next scene.
Right?
Yeah. I
You're about to
mean,
see. Yeah.
at that point, I wasn't really like, how would she know or why is she saying this? Not at this point of the episode, I wasn't thinking that. I was like, oh, okay, like that kind of makes sense to me.
Mm,
There was also some things I wasn't really thinking about. But then obviously we get the flashback. She's in the hospital after the fire. Bobby is like knocking on the door and stuff. Like obviously this is like right after shortly within, a certain time after this. And Bobby goes to see her to tell her how sorry he is for her loss. And then Bobby then says that he knows how enormous the pain of losing a child can be. And Leah's like, oh, really? how many children have you lost? And Bobby just being like, Bobby saying two.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like you definitely see this in shows and various scenarios where it's just like, how would you know? And like,
Yeah.
and it's always like they do know in some cases. So that was just like so powerful for that moment.
Right.
And she says like, oh, she's sorry. And Bobby tells her she doesn't have to apologize. Bobby says that he's the man who was supposed to save her son and he didn't. She doesn't owe him anything. And then she asks what his kids' names were, and this is when Bobby goes, Robert and Brooke, 11 and 9. And Leah says her baby was Micah. And Bobby says that it's a nice name and he will pray for him. And she thanks him. And she then says, like, can I ask you something? And Bobby's like, yeah, sure. And she asks him how he keeps going. And Bobby says that he lives in the belief that one day he will see them again. Leah is like, you really believe that? And Bobby said, with all my heart, he does. I'm just like, shit, like, god damn it. Like,
Right?
it's
Yeah.
such a
Exactly what I was
powerful
like, dang
thing.
it.
And just personally, that is something I always think about losing loved ones is like, I truly believe in like a heaven and all that kind of stuff. And it's such a powerful moment. And obviously, we knew this about Bobby too, and just seeing this obviously with the reality is so much harder.
Right.
uh and I know a lot of people have their reasons for not liking this. I still have like, I don't know how I feel about this whole thing. I know a lot of people were like kind of felt like the writers were mocking people for feeling like Bobby was alive, and I'm not gonna invalidate anybody's feelings. I'm just saying I know a lot of people felt that way, and I can understand it, but like it I don't know. I have so many feelings about different things, and I'm just like, I don't know.
I just think it's a little bit of a reach to say that this was a mock. This was a message to some degree, I think. I think there was definitely a message about letting go and grief and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's just as much as it was a message for Athena as it is for
Right.
us. That was not mocking
Yeah,
people.
no,
Yeah, like I said,
that.
I never want to like, I have a way of saying things because I definitely don't want people to feel like their feelings are invalidated. Like, if you want to feel that he is alive, go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, obviously accepting Bobby being dead is difficult and a lot of people aren't able to, and that's absolutely okay. But the show is not targeting anybody. It is
I
just moving forward with its storyline.
I feel
Right.
like in a sense they're just trying to clear things up to make things more clear, but I don't feel like it was with any malicious intent, of course.
Right.
Like, yes, they're trying
And
to make things more clear because I feel like some people may have been confused, even if we do think that like things have been clear on and off screen.
yeah, and I think there's also like it is making a point. It is. And it's also teaching a
Mm-hmm.
lesson. It is. But
Right.
not it's not punishing anybody for thinking otherwise. It's not doing any of that. It's just it's being very clear on what path the show is taking,
Mm-hmm.
how they are handling the passing of Bobby. And I do think the story was very important, and I'm glad we went through it, even as difficult as it was. Not particularly Bobby itself, but himself, but the baby storyline. Like that's rough anyway to deal with a child's passing. We're doing it on top of Bobby's death anyway, but it was a metaphor. It was a metaphor, it was a lesson, and I think it was actually pretty well taught.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I do have complicated feelings on it because in one sense, like I get storytelling wise what they were doing, but in another sense, I'm like, obvious, like I get it. Like it was very much like a story thing, but I'm just like, there's other things I feel about it. There's
Right.
so many things to say about it, but I don't know. So then Athena does go home and she hears laughter and like noises, and so she puts her hand like on her hip where her gun is holstered. And she's like, hello, anybody home? And then like Harry says, oh, it's just us. And so Athena asks, like, what they were doing here, and May says how, like, one of the neighbors, they ran into her in the grocery store, and she asked why no one told them that they moved back in. And Harry says, "Don't worry, like we covered for you." And Athena is just like hugging them, and Athena asks like what's for dinner, and they're like breakfast, and they brought sleeping bags so they can stay with her and camp out like they used to in the backyard. Athena is like, "You would do that?" And May says that they love her even more than running water, which I that was a
Right. Because
nice
it's obvious the
sentiment.
house is not ready to be lived in.
Yeah, yeah, I know. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Athena says she loves them, and after dinner, she'll show them some photos of the place that she found for Bobby. And Mia's like, "You found a place?" And Athena says, "Yeah," and she thinks it's perfect. And then,
I already knew, like, spoiler wise, I already knew what was happening. And so watching the scene with that in mind, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's so sweet. What?
yeah.
Mm.
Uh, so then, there's a knock at the door, and Buck says it's not locked. And Robbie walks in and is like, I'm not a probie anymore, right? And Buck says, yeah. And Robbie is like, then why am I still picking up your dry
Yep.
cleaning?
Cleaning.
I thought that
Oh,
was so like a funny touch. And Buck says, because I had to go to the airport to pick up this one, and we see Eddie.
yay. And he's
I
Eddie's
back.
know that
back.
Whoop, whoop.
I know there's so many things. I have so many things to say. So we
Me
see
too.
Eddie, and he gets up and he hugs Robbie, and he's like, "It's so good to see you, Rob." And Robbie says, "It's great to see you too, man. He just wishes it was under different circumstances." And Eddie's like, "Yeah, we all do." And Eddie's like saying like how he should have been there, and Buck is like, "Hey, you are here now," which I love
Right.
because obviously like Eddie found out all this stuff off screen, so we really don't know how it went down and stuff. And I know that's why a lot of people are having a hard time with the fact that it is like 2 weeks later and we didn't get like his reaction or like a couple other people's reactions. And honestly, I think it would have been a lot harder. And also, I saw a couple people say like, so it's been 2 weeks and Eddie just now shows up. Okay, he also has a life in Texas. Like he has a son he has to care for. He can't just
Yeah.
drop everything. He might want to drop everything, but he can't necessarily realistically, as a parent, realistically, he can't just drop everything.
Yeah. Well, you can't.
Like
And
as
also,
painful as it is.
Yeah.
like, they didn't have a day for the funeral yet. They didn't have any of that. If he had come, like, directly afterwards, he would have been putting his entire life on hold indefinitely. And, like, he doesn't
Right.
have the money to do that. He doesn't have, like, and
Yeah.
he can't leave Christopher all that time, which Christopher
Right.
could have maybe come with him, but we don't know. Is this in the middle of the school year?
Right.
We don't know that kind of thing. So I'm
Yeah.
not upset that he only just showed up now because I think it just makes sense. Life does not go on pause just because
Mhm.
something awful happens.
Right.
Sadly, I wish it did.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense for it to
Yeah,
have
it does
happened
make
like that.
sense.
Um and yeah, it's
Yeah.
life is just weird like that, but I'm glad he made it for the funeral.
Yeah,
For
and I,
sure.
I think it was wise for him to come kind of at the end because Eddie is not biologically related to Bobby. He was
Mm.
a firefighter because currently Eddie is not back at the 118, so he would not been off work. He's yes, he's grieving just like they all are. But yeah, Eddie, Christopher just moved back in with Eddie, and I'm okay with the Eddie finding out. I would have liked to see like a phone call or even just, maybe Eddie saying like, oh, when do I come? And Buck saying, just come when when we know there's a funeral or something. Like, yes, I would have liked to have seen a FaceTime or something between them, but I know a lot of people were upset that we didn't get like the buddy reunion. And I'm like, come on, guys, we don't need all of that. And it
I
wasn't
feel like
about
this scene
Buck
was
and Eddie.
enough, you know?
Yeah, it was
Like we got the
perfect.
reunion. Like I like and yeah, this was just such a good way to show it. Like yes, obviously if we could have got everything, we would have liked it, but sometimes like you got to realize you're not going to get everything. And I'm just even
Yeah.
glad that we got this scene
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, there is a scene I'm really upset they did cut out, and it actually had to do with the family of the, person who passed away. But we'll get to that. I just, yeah, I'm at this moment, I'm just happy to get, Eddie and Eddie back in California, period.
for real.
Because hopefully
yeah.
that'll be, leading to him coming back somehow.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, we get everyone getting ready for the funeral. So Karen is like, help. And she's like, Hen. And Hen's back to her. And Hen's like, purse, clutch. And then she's tearing up and breaking down and saying, I
That's
don't
when I started to
know.
cry.
Can I just say that this
That's when I
reminded
started to
me
cry.
of TK and Carlos getting ready for Gabriel's funeral?
Girl, this
Oh, that's a
reminds me
good
of so many
point.
shows.
True. That too. But that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
So many
But
scenes
yeah.
from so many different shows.
Right.
And they hug and Karen's like telling her like you're okay, and then Robbie pacing, and then Eddie just eating, and Robbie's like, that looks good, what is
Real, me
it?
too.
And asks what it is, and Eddie's saying, oh, I think it's a crumpet, there's plenty, and asks if Robbie wants
Been
one.
baking again.
Crumpets
Buck's
are
at
so
again.
good, by the way. I'm just saying I had them in England.
Yeah, I was
Great.
about to say, as someone that my great grandmother was like English and Welsh, so of course, like I would know.
They're
Yes,
so
very
good.
good.
Put some butter on them. Anyway, me fangirling over crumpets. Anyway, Buck is definitely baking.
Buck is grief baking, and honestly, I have so many things, and
He went from
him.
grieving his relationship baking to grieving his father baking, and then it's like, oh fuck.
Oh shit, we're here.
Right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he asked Robbie if once, and Robbie's like, I would probably end up wearing it, which honestly, that's understandable. And
Yeah.
and then Robbie tells Eddie that he's never done one of these before. He is like, I mean, you were in the military too. Guess you've done a lot of them. And Eddie says, not like this. And Buck is now ready and is like, okay, you ready? And Eddie says, as will ever be, because yeah, that is so true. And Buck's
Yeah.
phone is then buzzing. It's Maddie, and he gets off the phone and he asks Robbie if he minds driving Eddie to the church. He and then says he'll meet them there. And Eddie asks if everything's okay, and Buck says, yeah, he just has to pick something up for the service.
Something up.
Something. That's what I said literally. I was like, oh, something, huh?
One of those,
Or like
huh?
someone.
Yeah. So Buck, of course, shows up at the roof at the firehouse. You didn't even have to give context. I already knew. And Chim is like sitting there on the ledge drinking, and Chim yells, well, how do you even, he already knows, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Chim yells to Buck saying, this is a private party, Buckley, go away. And Buck says he can't do that. He made a promise to a pregnant lady. And Chim says, yeah, well, I'm guessing she's getting pretty used to broken promises these days. And Buck is like, come on, Chim, put down the drink. Let's go. We're gonna be late. And Chim is
I'm like,
like,
Chim, are you sober enough to do this right now?
I would give it time. Give it time. I don't know. And Chim is like, to my own funeral? Oh no, wait. Not my funeral. Just should have been. And Buck says that's not fair. And no one blames Chim. And Chim is like, hey, I don't blame me either. I blame him. Bobby had no right to keep us in the dark. He just decided for everyone how things were gonna go. And I kind of hate him for that. Buck says, you don't mean that. And Chim says, yeah, Buck, I do. He should have told us the truth. And Buck starts getting closer to Chim and tells Chim that it wouldn't have changed anything. And Chim says, it might have. There's always the third option, Buck. You know, when you're out in the field and you only have two bad options to choose from. You do not accept that. You do not let those be the only two crappy options available. You always find the third way. You know who taught us that? And Buck says, yeah, Bobby did. And Chim says, and we always did that. Time after time. We never gave up. We always found a third way. And we always did it together. Chim exiles, and Buck is like, "You think there was a third way?" Jim kind of like chuckles. This is such a hard moment, and says he spent the last 2 weeks thinking on it. He came up with nothing. He drinks from the bottle and tells Buck that he gave his life so he could live. I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do with that. And Buck tells him that he thinks he's just supposed to live, and Chim's like, yeah. I felt with Shem this whole
Yeah.
episode. Like every moment he had, I was just like, I understand this. I
Survivor's guilt.
understand, yeah, survivor's guilt to the max, and I get it. It's so hard, and just it's so unreal. Like, and I love them mentioning, like Bobby taught us this, and I hope we get more of that too in the future.
Yeah.
Just different things. But yeah, I'm glad that Buck was the one to show up for Chim, and honestly, Maddie, of course, knew that like if anybody can reason with Chim, it's gonna be Buck.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Hen as well, but Hen's also going through her own stuff.
I feel like it wouldn't have had as big of an impact. I feel like it had to be Buck.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for like maybe representing Bobby's side a little bit, it did.
Especially since like Buck and Athena were the last people to see Bobby alive too.
Yeah.
I definitely think it was just so impactful that this is what we got from them.
Yeah, for sure.
And then this is really where the emotions really, oh my God.
Yeah.
So the doors.
Time to cry, everybody.
Yeah. Get those tissues ready. So the doors open to the church, and you just hear footsteps echoing. That's Athena's walking into the empty church, with her sunglasses on. Such a mood, such a queen moment. And she just takes everything in, and then she sees, like, obviously, like, the funeral pamphlets, the picture of Bobby, the picture of them, and her looking at his picture saying, "Of all the days, this is the one you choose to leave me to go it alone." And I'm just like, oh. And then we get into the service, and so many things were happening, but of course, like, Chief Simpson is giving, like, the eulogy and stuff, and I will read the whole thing, and then I'll talk about some of the stuff we see during that. But yeah, this is gonna be a heavy one. So basically, this is what Chief Simpson says. So, on this day, we gather here to celebrate the life, the legacy of Captain Robert Wade Nash. A day filled with heaviness that weighs on us all as we gather in this sacred space. A day marked by gratitude for the life we lost and the many lives saved. As we reflect on his service, we remember the countless lives he touched, the friendships he forged, and the sacrifices he made. Captain Nash was more than a firefighter. He was a mentor, a husband, a father, and for so many of us, a beloved friend. There are many traditions in the fire service. Among those traditions is the sound of a bell. It was the bell that signaled the beginning of the day's shift. Each alarm was sounded by a bell, which summoned those brave souls to put their lives on the line for the good of others. And when the alarm had come to an end, it was a bell that signaled the completion of that call. When a firefighter fell in the line of duty, an office would tap out a special signal, 10 bells. The signal would be heard by all the station's houses, notifying them of the passing of one of their own. It is customary and fitting that the final alarm be sounded for our brother, Captain Robert Wade Nash. He has completed his duties, a job well done, and has now returned home. Oh my God. Through all this, we see a lot of things. So through this speech, it's so powerful, and especially like the 118 carrying this casket. I know we mentioned this like 2 episodes ago, how like on one side it was like the old 118, and the other side was like the new 118, because obviously we have like Chim, Hen, and Tommy on one side, and on the other side it's Buck, Eddie, and Ravi. That is so symbolic, and I don't know if that was intentional, but I kind of hope it was. I haven't really heard anything
I feel like
about
it was.
that.
I feel like it was.
I
want someone to ask Tim about it, or one of the writers. I want someone to go ask them, because I just feel like it was intentional.
And yeah. And I
for
love that
sure.
Buck and Chim were in front.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think that was really important, especially Buck. I think that really was very symbolic as well. And then obviously the firefighters are standing like on either side as they're carrying the casket down the center. And I don't even know how to put any of this into words of what we saw, but seeing everyone in the funeral, because of course, on one side we have May, Athena, Harry, Athena's parents, and then the second row we have Hen, Chim, Buck, and Eddie, and then behind them we have Gerard, Tommy, Ravi. Two rows behind them we have Maddie and Karen. Obviously, there's other people like
Mhm.
in because it's like full. And then on the other side in the front row, you kind of see Bobby's mom and brother sitting there. And then, of course, we get to the part where Chief Simpson says, like, uniform personnel, please stand up, and them all standing up. And he's saying like attention hut and present arms and like that whole thing and the bells ringing. That's so emotional. Like I
Yeah.
just the scene, like
Watching them
rewatching it.
salute and then holding it
Yeah, the
while the
salute,
bells
and
are
then
ringing.
of course, Bobby's jacket hanging on the back of the fire truck, and Chim is like standing there, and Buck's in front of him, and Buck like hanging up his helmet on the truck. That was like very fitting. And then this was just so emotional because like then we see Athena being handed the flag and like his actual like uniform cap, and then we see like this emotional montage, of course, of like the fire truck driving down like the city streets of LA, and like the ceremony was just like so beautifully done.
And
And
of course,
everyone,
bagpipes, which is very common. And I think, I
yeah.
don't know, first responder and military funerals get me every time.
Mhm.
And it's just so powerful.
Yeah. And like seeing everyone and with all this music and like I was a mess for sure, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we all were.
I'm a
And
mess right now.
then we see the plane and then the fire truck, and then not gonna lie, I probably was in shock watching this because obviously watching it live, all these things, and I was so confused. I was like, okay, a plane, and I was like, why is there a plane? And then the casket, and then we see Athena, May, and Harry bring flowers to Bobby's resting place. So there's so obviously there's Marcy, Robert Jr. and Brooks, their tombstones, and then Athena kneels down at Bobby's casket. This is where I really start sobbing. Like, of course, I was crying the whole episode, but like especially when you get to this part, as she kneels down, she is holding a single white rose as May and Harry are kind of like watching from behind, and Athena says, "Rest easy. You're home now, baby. You're home." And I lost it at this point. I was just like,
Yeah.
and this is when I realized that like he's in Minnesota. Honestly, I think I was in shock for like a little bit, and then I think it was like I realized, and then people are posting about it that like, and that was so fitting and also very like emotional that like Athena decided that, he should be in Minnesota with his family. And
Yeah. That was such a selfless act of her.
yeah, because she
Because
could have,
that, like, it's not impossible to go back to visit, but it's a long way to travel. Like, you'd have to
yeah.
carve out time.
And I'm getting chills talking about this, but she knew that that's where he would want to be. And I love her for that because she could have easily just buried him somewhere back in LA. But like she knew that like if he were to with him dying that he would want to be with his family. And I know people like this happens a lot if people like obviously move to a different city, and yeah, it's so selfless, but like it makes so much sense. And also like, a lot of people, if they do bury somebody like in their hometown, they'll like maybe make trips to visit them.
Right.
Who knows if maybe
Yeah.
the 118 could do that or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, but, and then like Athena, like, crying and leaning towards the casket, and Harry like putting a hand on her shoulder, as she like kisses the casket, and Harry helps like Athena get up, and May and Harry, and they all like link arms as the camera pans out. I'm like, God damn, no, what? I wonder how many times I've watched the scene because I've seen it in edits. I've seen it like the episode
Right.
twice. It doesn't matter, especially the music. It's just so damn emotional. Like this is the
Yeah.
part of the episode where I completely lost it. Like just
Yeah.
her saying that you're home now. I was just like, God Damn it.
Well, and I know a lot of people didn't like the whole case that she was working, however you want to look at it. If it wasn't for that, I don't think she would have thought to right away about putting him in Minnesota. It was like
Yeah.
that case was the reminder that, oh yeah, he's lost two children and a wife. Maybe I should bury them or him with them. And I think that was so fitting and so, I mean, because you can set up a memorial anywhere,
Yeah,
and they'll
you can.
probably have
Yeah.
one at the firehouse like they do at the 126 for the,
I'm sure they
original
will. I'm
members.
sure
So
they'll for sure
Yeah.
have something for Bobby.
Yeah.
And also, like,
Uh,
just visiting wise, like, a lot of people believe that, like, you don't need to, like, go to somebody's gravesite to be able to connect with them, which I for sure believe.
Honestly, they could probably just go to the top of the roof of the firehouse and just speak out into the night to him and stuff like that. Yeah, you don't need to go to the grave site, but it definitely hits that it was just put so far away because it's just such a sacrifice. Especially since it's very unlikely Athena will be buried with him because of that. So it was just such a selfless act. And I was sobbing the entire time. I did get spoiled as far as the Minnesota and the plane and everything, so I wasn't sure how I was going to react to that, but I was already crying. And then when I saw the plane, you would have think I wasn't crying at all before the amount I was crying. I was like, no. So
Yeah.
it's such, which I imagine like Athena had been struggling. I imagine she had gone through all the options before. She probably thought about, having him in a graveyard close. She'd been looking at mausoleums, which are probably expensive to bury someone in, and that would
yeah,
not have been her first choice that she was looking at.
right.
They've been looking for 2 weeks. She probably was just like, none of this fits, and then, sending him to be with his wife, his past wife and kids. Like, she'd always respected and honored his previous family and all that. I just think this was such a form of respect to both him, his own grief, his love for both her, but also his family before. Like, it was just so much selflessness that was like happening in this episode. And it's like, Athena girl, no one would have blamed you if you kept him with you, but the fact that you chose to do this for him is just beautiful.
So there were people were making like different pictures, like parallels, I guess you could call it, where it was like Athena
Mm,
when Emmett died, and
mm.
then obviously her looking at Bobby's picture and stuff. And that was before the episode that people are putting that together because obviously there's the stills. And that was I was like, oh shit, we're fucked.
Right. We
Yeah,
haven't even gotten to
we're
the
fucked.
episode. Yeah, I remember seeing those. I'm like, why did you put her through it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And like, I don't know if anyone else was like having this with the funeral scene, but I kept flashing back to Kevin's funeral,
Yeah, a
because
little
that's the
bit.
other firefighter funeral we've had on the show.
Hmm.
And so, like, when we're hearing the bells, we're not seeing the person who's ringing the bells really, but like, my brain was like supplementing Chimney at Kevin's funeral because he was the one ringing the bell,
Right.
Tommy right behind him. And I was just like, it was like the funeral itself was already doing me in, but also just thinking of Chim back then, like, openly, like, weeping, and that, and, like, the emotion from that scene compounding with the emotion of this one was just like that double-edged sword. And it
Yeah.
was it was just so interesting. I was definitely having that come to mind a lot.
For Kevin's funeral, didn't Chim walk in front of the truck with the
He
helmet?
did.
Or okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, and I loved that they had Buck be the one. Like it was like Chim handing it off to Buck, and then Buck
Mhm.
hanging it. It was like okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to add there were a few like I guess things that were kind of wrong in this episode. So one thing, and I know one of my friends was like, make sure you mention this when you record. But like they on the tombstone they spelled Brooke's name wrong.
Oh really?
They
Did
spelled
they?
it
Oh.
without the E. Um
Mm.
yeah, and I know like people are saying like some dates might have been wrong. I I don't I don't know. And but yeah, and I also noticed on Hulu when I was watching it that like they were spelling her name wrong in like the captions where I was typing it for notes and I was like, that is not right. I know how to spell Brooke. I do have a coworker with that name, and I've also heard that name before, as I should. And I'm like, that is not how you spell it. Like, I get there could be some like
Unless they went with
unique.
the original spelling of it, but
I
that
Mm,
doesn't
highly
really strike
doubt
me
that.
that
Just
Bobby and
American
Marcy would
wise and
have.
just language wise, that's not how you spell it.
right.
So yeah, they did, and I'm just like, somebody is like, edit that, fix that. Which I
Yeah.
find like, yes, I can find humor in that and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not too phased about it, but it is interesting that they they did that. I'm not even gonna think about the whole dates thing because we know this
Yeah.
show that has no timeline whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
think
not
what's
worried
most
about that.
important is that we know what's true, and us as fans, we can like formalize like what should be there and what they obviously don't give enough effort, because they forget things storyline wise and just a lot of things wise all the time. Us fans that are obviously not casual fans, obviously we pick up on things a lot more. I think the
Mhm.
average person would not pick up on any of the things that we're gonna talk about, but I just think it's interesting to note some of these things as
Yeah.
well. Um,
Yeah, I am pretty sure though we did get Bobby's birthday. I saw something saying that we, because of the programs for the funeral, like the programs had August 30th as his birth date.
Oh,
Uh,
well,
that's just something I saw. I was too busy crying over the funeral to look myself. But from the photo that I saw, that did is what it looks
yes.
like. So we have got a birthday for Bobby, technically.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Like all in all, I really liked this episode. I think it was done very tastefully. I know a lot of people were a little hesitant and a little upset about Athena being distracted by this case, which she wasn't really working on as a cop, but she was using their cop credentials to kind of get to things. Um, but I think it was, there's stages of grief, and it's not like this linear line. Like I talk about it a lot with people, and it's like, you could be angry one day and then depressed the next day, and then you could be, completely okay the next, and then a week later you could totally be like, no, I don't believe this is happening. I'm bargaining for something else. So this was her part of her grief and her process. um
yeah.
and so i
And
i think it went well with the,
yeah.
as we've seen. I mean, when she got hurt and like beat to snot at the end of season 3 and season 4, when she was recovering, like she was ready to dive back in to work and like work the case. um and they're like, no, you're one of his victims now, you don't have to work this case. And she still did, because that's Athena.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And there's also like depending on how long the show runs, obviously we're not gonna know, but there's also the point that grief will just hit you out of nowhere
Yeah.
5 years down the line,
Right.
10, 15 years down the line. Like for example, I made a joke the other day. I was at work, I made a joke the other day, and it was like lightly referencing my adoptive father who passed away about a year and a half ago. And I thought enough time that had passed that I could make like a light joke, kind of slightly referencing it. And then I was in a funk the rest of the day because that just brought it back all up for me.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't necessarily about his death. It was more about the fact that he had been a lawyer before he died, and we were making a joke that had to do with lawyers. And I was like, oh, you can have my, dead adoptive dad as your lawyer. And then I went, oh, and I was out
Right.
the rest of the day. So it's like, it's only been a year and a half, almost 2 years since it happened. Like that's not even all that long. But like there are some days where there are a lot of days I don't even think about it. And then boom, it
Yeah.
happens. Grief is like
yeah,
that.
Right.
yeah, it's yeah, and my coping mechanism sometimes is dark humor and
Real.
stuff.
I was
And
trying that one out and I figured out that didn't work very
yeah,
well.
I guess it depends. But like, and it's funny because at work, one of my other coworkers can use dark humor too, and he uses all the time. Um, and it's just like he says things, and they'll be like something about his mom. He'll be like, "She's dead," and like I do the same thing. So like one day I said it and I was like, yeah, one time like somebody was trying like we were in the back getting something and somebody was trying to get behind us with something or whatever and like they were walking so slow and we were standing like basically under this like huge rack. I was like thinking like, come on, you're taking forever. I go, come on, you're going so slow. My grandma can walk faster. And she said, and that's like kind of one of my things that I say like a little bit. Like I wait a little bit. And just some and I feel like just thinking about dark humor, I feel like if anybody, there's like two people where I could really see them making jokes. It would be either Chim or Buck.
Yeah,
I feel like that's just very
with enough
fitting.
time, yeah.
Yeah,
Chim and Buck
yeah.
would definitely be those.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I did I don't like the outcome. This is gonna sound really bad. I'm gonna say I don't like the outcome of this episode, not I just mean that Bobby's dead. And like
Oh
I
Right.
yeah.
haven't been like yes, in denial in the sense I'm like I can't believe this is real, not in the fact where I'm like he's alive. 'Cause like yes, shows pull off crazy things and I think I'm the most open to hear crazy theories. Like I honestly kind of like hearing crazy theories in a sense. I don't know, maybe it's another coping mechanism. I think the funeral was very beautifully done, just knowing
Hmm.
Bobby as a person. I think it honored him well. I like that we're getting flashbacks, and of course, we're getting them in the other two episodes too. And who knows, maybe we'll get them in next season as well. I like that it's not like, oh, he's dead, we're not gonna ever talk about him again.
Right.
Um, it
No, he was
was,
going to be a major focus for a long time.
Yeah.
oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that everything that happened in this episode did make sense. And like yeah, like some scenes I had like complicated feelings on because I'm just like, well, like I don't know, like I know a lot of people had said that like they felt like Chim and Athena were the only ones grieving in this episode, and people are like, I wish we saw them grieve more in this episode and not just like all these side storylines. And I agree with that to an extent, but I don't know. It's also this is only one episode after Bobby dying. We're obviously in the final two episodes of this season. We're gonna get more of that. And I think different characters are obviously playing different roles. Like I think a lot of people were like, how was Buck not breaking down? But I think clearly Buck is looking out for everyone, as Bobby kind of said, like, take care of everyone. Like that's your
Right.
job. And I think Buck is clearly like holding it in for everyone else. And he is going to break down. Obviously, we saw him like right after, but now he's holding it together and he will break
Yeah.
down again. We all
Oh,
know
he
it.
for sure. He
It's
for sure
something's
will.
gonna happen in the next two episodes. Yeah, like yes, if we could have had Bobby still be alive, obviously we would choose that, but this is
Yeah.
just I guess like a new era. So yeah, it's just like I can appreciate like just what they gave us in this episode, and it was very like on par um for everyone, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, I really liked this episode. And obviously, it's always rough to say that when it's such an episode as this. Like obviously no one is glad Bobby's dead. No one's celebrating he's dead or anything.
Right.
But I think that this episode was a beautiful tribute to
Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah.
I think it was a beautiful tribute to Bobby and Athena. And the funeral was beautifully done. Like I 10 out of 10, no notes. I was happy with everything. I am happy that he was laid to rest in Minnesota, even as difficult a decision as that was.
Right.
Um, like I have no notes as far as the funeral goes. Even with the rest of the episode, like I am not unhappy at all that we didn't get anyone else. This is great. And
Yeah.
the only person whose grief I wanted, the episode where burying Bobby and the episode after he died, is
Yeah.
she is his
Exactly.
wife.
Yeah.
She's his wife. He was the love of her life. She is the only person I
Mhm.
wanted the grief or to learn about her grief, to follow her grief journey, and we're going to be following it for a long time.
Right.
Like we got little tidbits for everybody. We got a bit more with Chim as well, and I absolutely embrace that we got those, but I am not unhappy that we got no one else's exact
Mhm.
storyline because she was the only person I wanted to hear from in this episode.
Right.
And
For
we
sure.
did. We got a beautiful, heart aching, impactful storyline with her. And I'm glad May and Harry were there to support her. Watching them, especially like we were watching them all, they were all breaking down during the funeral. Like watching May
Right.
sob, like basically sob. Harry had tears running down his face. Like they
Yeah.
were maintaining such a level of poise that I envy because I could not have done it put in their
Right.
position,
Yeah.
but they were obviously still grieving. So just I think that the episode was handled beautifully.
Yeah.
I think it was a beautiful tribute, and I am interested to see what happens in the next couple of episodes because we will be
Me
dealing with
too.
everyone else's grief journey. But I'm glad
Yeah.
we got Athene's and did not minimize, not minimize necessarily, but sort of minimize the amount like her grief storyline got by including others. Because we couldn't have given everyone the time they deserved without a like 6 hour episode. Let's be real.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And you know, uh it comes with every episode, but there's a lot to talk about that you can't get everything.
Hmm.
So anything that was cut, I'm not really mad about at all. Like, would I like to see it? Yeah, but like honestly, I don't really think it would have changed things
No,
and stuff.
no, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
No. Yeah. No. This was a really good episode for what it was. I mean, yeah. Of course, I would love to have Bobby still alive, but unfortunately, that's not the way the series decided to go, and we as fans don't have control of it. And I think we should have celebrated Bobby, and I think it was done well. So.
Right. Yeah, and um I get, like, I know I have friends that said that they that are active parts in the fandom and said that they might still continue watching, but they're not gonna like talk about the any episodes um after this episode, which is, I understand. And I know like a lot of people are not going to watch anymore, which is totally understandable.
Right.
I get it. There were a few seasons ago, if Eddie died, we might have not have continued watching, so it's
Right.
understandable. And I know people have feelings just about different things, like about them actually like killing somebody off when like they really haven't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's a lot of things to say, and honestly, I cannot compose everything that I is kind of like that I'm thinking. Because I honestly don't know what to say. Not
Well,
even that. There's so many things that I could think about and stuff, and
that's what our Discord server's for too.
I know like I talk about the episodes and I post lots of things. So I sure I'll blab something, but like I don't know. It was beautifully done episode, and I don't know. I also feel like I'm gonna have more opinions on this episode once we see the next two episodes because I feel like obviously we know we're getting more Bobby, like either flashbacks or maybe more ghost appearances is a good way to put
Mhm.
it. So that'll definitely make me interested. And I do kind of want to rewatch the whole series as a whole.
Mhm.
But also like this season, I feel like I'll want to go back and rewatch just because I feel like there were definitely foreshadowing moments that now looking back, you could be like, oh, yeah, they were definitely trying to hint at something.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few fan thoughts, just a few. Sad, but very good goodbye. Um, it was a well done episode, very sad, and that was it for that. Yeah, I know it's been like different reactions online, like we've kind of already said. I I did think it was interesting that I forget who it was, but one of the journalists was like, "So what would it take for you guys to like actually like realize that Bobby's dead?" And a lot of people were just like, "Oh, I'll never believe it." Some people were like, I forget even what the response was, but I thought it was an interesting thing that was put out there. And I know, like, I think this episode really cleared things up for some people because I think people
Hmm.
wanted to be hopeful that the outcome was different, but a lot of people are like, damn, this is really real. I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. It is hard, like, you know, it's it's such like I've watched so many different shows that have killed up so many people. Um, and this is probably like the worst death I've watched in a TV show in a really, really long time. Like it's not uh, it's just hard. It's a hard one to think about. It's uh it is. But I'm still like interested to see like what happens with everyone.
I can understand why some fans are choosing to not watch the series anymore. There were some that I'm sure came to the show because they knew of Peter's past works and they wanted to support him as an actor. And now that he's no longer on there, I can understand and respect that they choose not to watch the series. And that goes for anyone who has a favorite character that dies. When Derek Shepherd was killed in Grey's Anatomy, spoiler alert, 10 years ago, I stopped watching Grey's Anatomy because I'm like, it just to me when it started going downhill. It had been going downhill for a while, but I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. Derek was one of my favorite characters and he's gone. So I'm like, I'm not gonna stick around. And I pop in once in a while and see what's going on. But then on the other hand, I know there's a lot of fans that are like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch this. I'm not gonna like it. I'm not gonna talk about it like I used to. And I'm like, is it because you want to boycott it because you think talking about it is, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I just want to say, like, why don't you like rethink your like motives for why you're saying certain things? Because, and I get it, like, we're not going to give them any more promotion.
I you're I have so many feelings
I
on that. One thing
Yeah.
see, I don't think people are stopping to watch to boycott 911. I think a lot of people have said they're not going to watch Nashville because they don't trust after all this, which is understandable. I think people
People have been saying that
already
before the Bobby storyline, though.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, but people are saying it even more now. Like people are almost doubling down, which I kind of understand. After Lone Star, a lot of Lone Star fans are not gonna watch Nashville. I've heard several people say that and stuff, which is totally understandable. And I get like everyone's reasoning for not only that, but also like people being like not watching. I think most of the people that have said they're not gonna watch might also not be like the crazy fans. I think some of the crazy fans are gonna still watch and stuff. But yeah, this is a total shakeup and it's gonna be difficult for a long time. This is the first time we ever experienced this. And I know Tim said something about realism, and I think people are taking that
They're taking that way too
a
seriously.
little too seriously, and I think that wholeheartedly because Tim's not saying everything they've done on 911 is realistic because let's be honest, these are TV shows for entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is real. There've been yes, this
There was a bee tornado earlier this season. It's not a
Right.
show for realism.
yeah, and
Right.
people are like, well, Tim should have died with a rebar. There was actually a guy that they
Buck
inspired the
should have died with
storyline that
lightning.
did survive. So like it's not too far off. And I get like, yes, earlier like 4 or 5 episodes ago with Maddie, yes, realistically she should have
Sure.
died. But what I feel like what I think of when I think of realism, I think of other first responder shows that kill people off. It's like you go for so long, not really anybody like people surviving from danger, and like you kind of have to rein that in a little bit and have something happen. And it doesn't matter who it would have been, it would have hurt. Like yes, they could have picked somebody
Right.
on the side, but it wouldn't have been as impactful. It wouldn't have like they obviously wanted to like be like, they're first responders. They might not that might be their final call. Like and honestly, if you think about a deadly virus, you're not gonna survive that if you have no cure. Like it's
Or the only cure
terrible.
was
And I
used.
wish Bobby would be alive, but like that's just not the reality. And I know some people might not like that. And I'm not saying I want Bobby to be dead. Trust me, if I could literally make Bobby not dead, I would do it.
Yeah, none of us are here
Mhm.
being happy they did. here's the thing for me, right? And I, at the heart of it, I understand why some people don't want to watch the show anymore. I think that is your prerogative. Everyone can choose when they want to stop or start engaging with media.
Mhm.
That's the great thing about media.
Right.
However, I will say, so as far as online goes, I keep to my area. I am on Tumblr. I keep to Buck Tommy Tumblr. That is what I am on there for. Those are some of the only people I trust online. So I'm like, you know what? I keep to my end of things. However, the thing with Tumblr and probably any other algorithm is when you post using certain tags, they're going to put other posts regarding those tags on your feed. So I've been getting a lot of posts that are simply there because they're tagged with Bobby Nash. Sadly, that means I have been immersed in some bad takes and some interesting fans as of late. And I have started utilizing my block button. The thing is that a lot of the people over there, and this is hardly all of them, but unfortunately a lot of people that I come across, they say a lot of stuff about how they're going to stop watching the show. But they keep posting for days and even for weeks about how they're going to stop watching the show. And I'm like, okay, so watch the show, stop watching the show, but stop watching the show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, if you're posting that you're going to stop watching the show, and I know a lot of people that said they're going to stop watching the show wanted to hang on for the funeral episode, so I get that. But if your entire account is talking about how you're going to stop watching the show, but you're still posting about it, if you're still committing to theories, it's still bringing an edge of toxicity to the fandom. And I am trying to be respectful because I don't want to call everyone that says they're leaving the show toxic. That's not what I'm trying to say. But it's also, those are the same people that are flooding the social media with terrible comments insulting the writers, the actors, the storyline, or saying fuck you to Munir, talking about how they hope he dies, stuff like that. They're also the people that are review bombing the episode on IMDb. And it's like, just stop watching the show.
Yeah, don't do malicious things on your way out. It's no different than somebody who'd been with a company for a long time being fired for something they didn't do, and them harassing and threatening people after they leave because they were fired. Just don't. Just be done with it. So yeah, I totally understand that.
And also people saying that this is going to cause 9-1 to be canceled. It's not.
No.
They made a calculated risk, knowing they would lose viewers because of this. You stopping watching the show you personally stopping watching the show is not going to mean the show gets canceled. I'm sorry. I am trying not to be a bitch right now, but I am so fed up of things I've seen.
That's as much as I want to say that's true. We also don't know. Yes, it was a huge risk, but we also don't know. We won't really know until like next season. It will be interesting. I'm not saying that like it's gonna go one way or the other, or I agree with one way or the other, but we really don't know. It will be interesting to watch and see what viewership is like for the last 2 episodes of the season.
It all rests on season 9, I think, because they've already been renewed for season 9.
Thank God.
And I feel like if ratings continue to go down and viewership definitely dwindles because of their choice, they could be on the bubble next season. But we have season 9 to find out.
Yeah, it's gonna be an adjustment. I understand. And honestly, I understand that people are like, I can understand people being mad at the writers, at Tim, at this and that. And I know people are like, oh, I can't believe at this moment I'm glad I wish that Kristen was a showrunner. Fuck that. Because we wouldn't be getting half the storylines we're even getting this season. Especially with like Buck and stuff. And this is something I've been thinking about a little bit, but I think that they were setting up certain things this season, like Buck cooking and baking and that kind of stuff, that almost felt like them trying to pass Bobby's legacy to Buck. And I'm now thinking about that, and maybe that's just me, but like some things about Buck this season are really just like, damn, were they really like doing that? Maybe that's my delusion, but like
I've been feeling they've been setting that up for a while.
Yeah, like it's just
I think it's less of a impulse decision than some people think it is. They've definitely been setting it up.
Okay, I'm glad we all agree on that because I've been thinking about that a lot these past few days.
Virtual high fives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay!
So many things and stuff. I guess we can talk about the promo now. So this is the promo for the next episode, 817. So Athena is telling Hen that the best thing for the 118 would be her as captain. And Hen is like saying how she doesn't know if she wants that. And so then we get this call and this lady is like, the water is on fire, and I'm like, huh? Um, and the news reporter saying, methane is on in the taps or whatever of like the water taps or whatever, something like that. And it's like I don't even know what's this promo is, but in Jillian's reporting, flaming water in their faucets. Pen yells that the flames are jumping, and Chim is saying it's like a tinderbox. And Buck yells like engine strike, and then Gerard's saying something about like we have minutes before from an environmental disaster, and then like the building sparks, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
And
I think I saw a statement that was saying something about the next episode was like, don't drink the water. And it was basically because of an earthquake, methane got into the water system. So, like,
Wow,
interesting.
California has earthquakes? Who
right.
fucking
So when the fire
Yeah.
department filled up the fire truck with water, it actually was filling it up with water and methane. So when they're blowing and spraying water on a fire, it makes fire bigger.
how that works?
Somehow I'm getting a flashback to the Lone Star 101 and that whole opening scene. Just like the vibes are vibing, I guess, is a good way to put it.
Well, the good news is I don't think they're aiming to wipe out the entire current
Well,
118,
not that part of
but
it, but just building wise is kind of like the
yeah.
same feeling, vibe, whatever you want to call
Right.
it. I know. Okay, so the titles, I'm not gonna lie, this or the some of episodes this season are, I don't know. I when we got them, I was like, what the hell? Also, like everyone being like, don't drink the water, and it's like Eddie, and I'm like, guys, it is not that, but like I can joke, I can definitely joke. So I do get like some things because I'm just like, yeah, when this title came out, it was like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And stuff. And I did hear like this episode will be connected to the finale as well. Like supposedly it's another two-parter. I don't know. I'm sure that it connects because usually that's how the finale episodes go. I think it's also pretty rare that they're still filming into May,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
rare.
due to like the LA fires that they had to like stop production for a few weeks. So like that's mostly why. But I think a lot of people were commenting on like, wow, they're still filming into May. Like that usually doesn't happen. Usually they're done in like April.
Yeah. I
I,
think
I'm
even one season 911 was done filming in like March. I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I think it's usually
I
in March, early April.
I would be interested to know what's happening behind the scenes, but I'm like, did they originally have some other stuff planned for the end of season and now they're backtracking stuff, or like what?
Possibly.
Or
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know. So
I did hear that like, most of the reason why is because of like them having to stop production earlier this year for a few weeks that like slowed things down because they weren't able to film for like, a few weeks, and
Yeah.
then they were
Yeah, they
only
were filming a
able
lot
to
of
film
interior
inside.
scenes. Yeah. Yeah,
Um
it's going to be interesting to see the last two episodes and see where they go because I know there's been pictures of on set of like Oliver in some like turnout pants and a blue shirt, like all dusty, and Ryan is on set in turnouts. So
Eddie's back, guys.
Eddie's back in turnouts, which is like okay, so like exciting for that. So hopefully
could be
like
that or could be a flashback, but he might
well,
be fully
Gerard
back.
I
was
don't think
captain, Gerard
so.
was with him, so I kind of don't feel like it was a flashback unless it
Yeah.
was a flashback to season 7 when Bobby was not or yeah, early
I
early
don't
8.
buy that
Wow,
as much.
that was the
I
season. Oh
really don't
God.
because like
Well,
also
also
notice that
mustache is a
like
good point as
Gerard
well.
was more clean shaven than
Yeah.
he has been in the past too.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll
Right.
see. He might just be back. I'll be interested to see how they do that storyline.
Yeah, because I feel like
Which would
we're
be especially funny if they
moving
brought him back
towards
with no
that.
explanation. Like no explanation on whether he sold the house in Texas. No explanation on that. Nope, nothing. He's just back.
Honestly, it's not one. Nothing really surprises me at this
Right.
point.
Exactly.
Because they
So
forget. things all the time.
I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being something along the lines of Buck and Eddie end up living together for the first half of season 9 while they're waiting for the house to sell. I just had a friend that they moved up here a year ago and they just sold their house in the other city they were living in. Like, dang, it's not a seller's market, apparently.
Yeah, I've heard that's taking longer to sell houses. There was like a period of time where like houses were selling so fast, but I feel like I've heard
we're in a recession. We're just struggling right now.
Yeah, like things are taking longer to sell now.
Great Depression 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, honestly, I'm here for Eddie coming back, and I'm here for like Eddie Buck roommates era. Honestly, I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. We'll see.
I'm interested to see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, but we've got 2 more episodes of the show for the season, and
for sure.
More to say coming soon.
I know. I'm sure we'll have more to say once we see like the next few episodes. Obviously, you guys know we love to yap.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, but it's just so much is happening. I feel like it's just a lot. Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. Be sure to check out our website 91lsroundup.com. You guys can also follow us on our socials at 91lsroundup on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. As always, be sure to join our Discord server. The link is in the description of this podcast and also on our website. You guys can follow me, Katie, at The Love of Tarlos on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at RunRaffle911 on Instagram and Threads.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Threads. Bye.
Bye.